What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Now, we do have to get into that PlayStation Classic system because they released all of the games. So we know all of the games, all 20 that are coming with the system, and yes, they are very disappointing. The list is not very good. There's a lot more they could have done. I also want to talk a bit about why they couldn't include some games, because I think there is some reasoning there outside of just licensing issues and getting the rights for certain games, things like that. I think certain releases that have already been coming out or are coming out actually might have even affected some of the games on this PlayStation Classic system. And believe it or not, I mean, I guess it's not even hard to believe. The Japan PlayStation Classic is way better than the one that we're getting here in the West. And yeah, again, disappointing, really is. But we'll take a look at it and I'll tell you guys kind of why I feel that way. Also, Capcom put their financials out. They did actually pretty good. Everything looks good overall, and they're kind of moving forward. We're going to go over all some of their numbers and why it looks good so far for Capcom. And then the team from Octopath Traveler with Square, well, they're looking to get their game out sooner rather than later, actually. Another game. So pretty exciting stuff there. As always, guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure you hit the like button. We are coming up on 150,000 subscribers, not too far off. And we might actually get there before the end of October. So pretty exciting stuff. Now, let's start with the quick news. I do want to start with Diablo 3. Now, reviews are coming out today for Diablo 3 on the Switch, so make sure you're checking around. I told you guys, make sure you check out Max, Dreamcast guy. He's very familiar with the Diablo 3 overall, and he's going to give a pretty good review on that later on today. Of course, checked it out on the channel yesterday with a full preview, and we did some gameplay, and I was pretty happy with the way it performed overall. It performs well, and it looks like a good time. So if you're looking for some Diablo, maybe you haven't played it before, maybe the idea of a portable version is interesting to you, might be worth looking into. It is cheaper on other systems, but I'm sure the Switch version will also drop in price as we go forward into next year, so you can also technically wait for it. But I do think Diablo itself as a game is worth the $60 just because it's Diablo and it's really fun and there's a lot to it. Now, we also found out a bit more about Game Pass for the month coming up in November. And it looks like there's going to be a bit more at XO. Now, we did get this slide here from the Xbox Twitter handle that you can see. Game Pass put this up, and you can see right away Sniper Elite 4 is there, but Grip, which is actually a new game, is also coming to Game Pass, which is actually pretty cool to see. Now, I haven't played Grip yet. I want to check it out and see, because I had been getting press releases from them for the PC version that they were kind of putting in a little bit of beta and showing people and checking it out. But I'll be checking it out either way, either on Game Pass, on the Switch. Maybe we'll even compare them and see how they kind of compare to each other and stuff. Obviously, the Xbox One version will probably have 4K and everything, so that'll be cool. But then we'll see how the Switch version performs in its portable mode as well. Pretty neat to see, though. They're doing that more and more with the newer games that come out. Sniper Elite 4 is the other big one, but then the interesting thing is they put specifically plus more at XO 18 in Mexico City, which makes us all believe that they'll probably announce something else. What? I'm not sure yet. That's the interesting thing, is what could they announce that would be big at XO to put on Game Pass? Well, it's pretty much anyone's guess, but it's cool to see that, yes, we will have, at least at this point, another announcement. Could be one game, could be several at XO. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that. And then we found out when Phantasy Star is coming to the Switch, at least in Japan, because it was originally supposed to come out in September, never showed up. Here we are now getting to the end of October, still no Phantasy Star. Well, it's actually coming out now October 31st. They put the announcement out online. It's going to be roughly $8 or so. Still no word when it's coming out here in the West. As far as we know, this is going to be specific to Japan's Sega Ages on the Switch. Of course, it is region free, so you could technically go on the shop and download it. However, it's going to be probably all in Japanese. This is a full old school RPG, so I don't know how much good that would do you, but you can technically do it. Maybe you know Japanese and you can read it. Otherwise, you'll have to wait until some undisclosed time. We're still waiting to hear when it's going to release anywhere else but Japan. Still, though, at least we know it's coming out in Japan, which means hopefully not too much longer afterwards. It'll be available everywhere else. Okay, guys, some of the quick news out of the way. Let's jump into some of the bigger stuff. The biggest thing I want to get into is this PlayStation Classic. Coming out December 3rd. I've already purchased one. I'll be getting it, taking it apart. We'll do all of that, and then we'll also probably check out some of the games, play them, maybe even review it a bit and see what we have there. It's going to be $100. And the big thing was they told us about 5 games initially, and they looked promising. Final Fantasy VII was there. That was cool. No Ridge Racer was there. And then we knew about Wild Arms. And at first glance, I was like, that's neat. 5 games. They'll tell us about the other 15. And I was a little worried that it was going to be kind of underwhelming because they weren't super excited to tell us about the games right away. Either they thought they were building hype, or they didn't have it all figured out yet. Anyway, here are the 20 games that's going to be on the Western PlayStation Classic. Here we go. Full list: Battle Ranta Shinden, Cool Borders 2, Destruction Derby, Final Fantasy VII, Grand Theft Auto, Intelligent Cube, Jumping Flash, Metal Gear Solid, Mr. Driller, Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, Rayman, Resident Evil Director's Cut, Revelations Persona, which is an interesting one to have in there, the Persona game, R4 Ridge Racer Type 4, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Siphon Filter, Tekken 3, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, Twisted Metal, and Wild Arms. So, looking at this list right now, some confusion sets in as you start to read over it over and over again. Rainbow Six has no place on this list. I have no idea why that's there. Keep in mind, we don't even have DualShock controllers here. These are all just the regular ones. And that's a first-person shooter that already looks very dated and even runs at a frame rate that's extremely dated. So I don't know why that's there. It's very, very weird. It's not even Sony's game. And something I noticed from this list, you really start to realize that Sony heavily leaned on third parties during this generation. It wasn't like Nintendo had a lot of their own IPs and games, which is one of the reasons I think people are really excited for the idea of a Nintendo 64 Classic, because there were a lot of games from Nintendo that we remember from that time. But looking at this list though, I don't know why we get the first Twisted Metal and not the second one. Why? Like, it's very weird. Twisted Metal 2 is better than Twisted Metal 1. A lot of us remember Twisted Metal 2. Why are we getting the first one? I don't know. I would even go out on a limb here and say we should be getting Siphon Filter 2, although 1 is still pretty good. I personally prefer 2. Metal Gear Solid is good. I'm glad to see that there. I was pretty much dead set on it needs this game. If it doesn't have Metal Gear Solid, there's a problem. It's an iconic game for that system that most of us at least, remember from that system as playing. Some of the cool ideas where you change the controller over from port 1 to port 2 was an awesome idea. Reading stuff off your memory card. I'll be curious how we go over that, by the way. Maybe it can actually figure out, oh, okay, I got to move over player 1 to 2. Do we even have a disc change animation? I assume not. I assume that's just out. But you look at that list, and I'm sure even you, and I encourage you to do so down in the comments, could name several games that you remember from the PS1 days back in the mid-90s as games that you would like to see on here. There's no Mega Man games at all. I know we had the Legacy Collections released, but why is there no Mega Man Legends 1 or 2? Mega Man Legends should have been on here, the first one. Everyone's saying Castlevania. Why is there no Symphony of the Night? Well, to be honest, that's because Konami wanted to re-release it, as we saw with their collection they're putting out. That's why. They don't want to compete with this. They're basically competing against the same game. Like, why would they do that? That's one of the big reasons why we don't see that there. But stepping back, there's no Spyro the Dragon. Again, they don't want to compete with themselves. That's coming out in 2 weeks now. There's no Crash Bandicoot. Again, they're selling you that to you through a remaster. So why would they compete with that? I think a lot of these remasters are actually catching up to this PS1 a bit here. I think that's really one of the reasons. But then you have licensing issues. Like, I'm sure something like one of the best rated games, by the way, of all time, that again was a game that I specifically remember playing on the PS1. It was on the 64 as well, but most of us played it on the PS1. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. What is going on here? There's no Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 on this system. It's weird. I don't get it. Even the first one, again, I'm sure the music in that game, names for the different skaters, there's a lot of stuff going into it, but like, that would have been a really big deal, I think, especially if people saw that and remember it, they would probably think about buying it. And then, of course, the RPG library on that system is insane, right? I mean, a lot of people point out Xenogears. I talked about Xenogears. Yeah, that was a big one. But you can go down a ton of different RPGs, which we're going to see in that Japan one, by the way, which we're about to go over. And then the other one that really stuck out to me when I saw that list, and I said, man, really? No Gran Turismo. Like, they have some racing games here, but again, Gran Turismo, I remember getting that and I was like, wow, this is insane. Playing Gran Turismo, all the actual cars and everything. Again, licensing, I guess. I don't know. That, again, another iconic game not there. It just feels like they just whiffed over and over again when they put these games on there. I'm still getting one, but I understand why some people may have looked at this list and said, I'll pass on it. I don't need it. Keep in mind, though, this is going to be hacked right away. Based on the emulator that's probably being used by Sony, it appears to be a good emulator, as we've seen in the past. So, we might get to the point, based on the flash storage that's on there, it has to be at least semi-large to include a lot of these PlayStation 1 games. you might be able to just put your own games on there. Okay, here is the list for the PlayStation 1 Classic that's coming out in Japan. If you remember, like the Super Nintendo Classic, the Nintendo Classic, they had different variations of the games based on the region that you bought it in, specifically Japan or anywhere else really. They just had different ones between them. Same thing here. Arc the Lad 1, Arc the Lad 2, Armored Core. Are you already sad reading down this list? Because I am. Right away, the first three, I'm like, oh, come on. Biohazard, Resident Evil, Final Fantasy 7, G-Darius, Gradius, Gaiden, Intelligent Cube, Jumping Flash, Metal Gear Solid, Mr. Driller, Parasite Eve. What is going on around here? Why is Parasite Eve on the Japan PlayStation 1? You know what? That's fine. Revelations Persona, Ridge Racer Type 4, Saga Frontier, Super Puzzle Fighter, Tekken 3, Battle Arena Toshinden, Wild Arms, and then 11, Devil Dice. Like, you just look at the Japan version of the PlayStation 1 Classic. I mean, like, Parasite Eve. How is something even like a Parasite Eve not on the American one? I don't understand why this is happening. Like, it's the Japan version of the PlayStation 1 Classic is better. It's just better than everywhere else, apparently. And the problem with that is you can buy it and import it, but they're all going to be in Japanese unless there is like an English option, which I doubt it. It's probably just going to be in Japanese. But like Parasite Eve, Arc the Lad 1 and 2, I don't get what's going on here when I look at this list. Armored Core, that's another one that I guess I didn't really think of at first, but then I saw the list for the Japanese PlayStation. I'm like, man, like Armored Core, all these games would have been better to have just an overall system that has these games. Like if you just grabbed the Japan list and threw it over on the international, I guess you say, PlayStation 1, I think most people would actually like that more. It's very odd. I'm not sure what happened. I'm curious what would have happened in the background to get to that list that feels very underwhelming. But let me know what you guys think about this down in the comments, and if this has now put you off from the PlayStation Classic seeing this list, or maybe you're just jealous of the Japan PlayStation 1 Classic, or maybe you're fine with it. And it's fine too, because it is obviously games that you prefer over others. I'm just curious as to what happened here, but let me know what you guys think about the situation down below. Is this still, to you, worth $100? And it's coming out December 3rd. So we found out about these games maybe even after most of us pre-ordered it. Like me, I pre-ordered it right away. And now, if I wasn't going to be taking part in stuff, I might kind of look at that and say, maybe not. Next up, let's talk about Octopath Traveler and the team behind it. Now, of course, Square Enix worked on it in collaboration with Acquire, and it seems like they're very happy with the sales, and who can blame them? It passed 1 million copies pretty quickly for a JRPG, and overall the game was pretty good. Evan and I have actually completed it and everything, and we're working together to get I guess a late game review together. It's been out for a while and most people probably played it, but it was still interesting to both of us to play through it. We'll work on a video for that, like I talked about, probably after, an Octopath Traveler after like 80 or 100 hours or something, because I put about that in. But let's talk about their next project, because it seems like they are interested in getting it out sooner rather than later, and when they talked with Nintendo Dream, this is what they said. With Bravely Default, Bravely Second, and now Octopath Traveler, we have been releasing approximately one game every 3 years or so. However, we are currently expanding our development team, and we hope we can increase the pace of our releases moving forward. We'll continue to make core RPGs specifically for fans of Square Enix RPGs all over the world. So if you liked what you saw with Octopath Traveler, look forward to what we have in store for you in the future. Okay, so this is pretty interesting because it sounds like they don't want to wait very long. They want to get this done and out, and they're maybe even working with Unreal Engine 4 going forward, as it's probably going to also work with the next systems anyway. Let's say they are designing a game that's going to continue on, and maybe it ends up on the next Switch as well in a sequel and everything. They want to keep the same look. So Unreal Engine seemed to have worked with this game, Octopath Traveler, and maybe they go back and look at Bravely Default, that series, and maybe they bring out a third one. Maybe they work to a sequel to Octopath Traveler, work to a game that's the same idea as like a traditional RPG, and maybe pull that same engine over, because the game looked great. It really did. It was like awesome, original looking art style, and I liked it. And now the question is, are they talking about 2019? If they're hiring people and getting things going and maybe even using the same engine, maybe they announce something next year and it's ready for 2020. As long as they're ready to announce it, because they announced Octopath Traveler well in advance of it coming out, maybe they do have something for us next year to show us, and then it comes out in 2020. Maybe in the summertime. It worked out for Octopath. Why not? Let me know if you guys would like to see the next game pretty quickly, if they can hire on and get stuff done quicker. I mean, they're making the money for it, right? Octopath's selling. They have actual success with the Switch and everything just by itself. So yeah, let's get some more games going from that team because they're making quality products. In our last bit of news, let's talk a bit about Capcom and their financial reports they put out. They put this out in a press release and they talked a bit about Q2 for them. And Capcom's always been iffy with us because sometimes they report they're doing well, other times they're not. They're kind of like Sega where we know they're going to be around, but you're not ever really sure how well they're doing. Because remember, Capcom had to close down the studio that was doing Dead Rising and everything, and we don't know if we'll ever see that again, or at least not for a while. It'll probably go away for a while. But they at least told us that they are doing well. Monster Hunter World on the PC seemed to really push some sales. And in a lot of the documentation they put out, they talked a bit about a few of their products, because there was one in particular I wanted to see, by the way, to see how well it did and if it was something they're still working towards. Again, we'll see more next report in the Q3 report when we find out more about Mega Man 11. But they did say that the Steam version of Monster Hunter World really pushed forward, and they did report in this quarter, so for Q2, that net sales increased to 43,327 million yen. Keep in mind, they had to shut down that studio, so that studio had to have hurt them a bit, but they even told people, we'll be fine because we're doing very well here. So it sounds like things were good there. Monster Hunter Generations, according to them, in their own words, were robust sales. So that tells me that, again, it did pretty well, and they owe that to consistent popularity. So I would expect a Monster Hunter game built from the ground up for the Switch, and maybe they'll continue doing stuff with World on the other systems. So they could have, as I said before, 2 lines of Monster Hunter games. One for the Switch specifically, as it seems like the audience there is interested, obviously, as a lot of people have a Nintendo product because of Monster Hunter got them there with things like the 3DS line of Monster Hunter games. But then Monster Hunter World will continue to probably move on, and they'll add to it with games as a service, and then, of course, they'll probably build a whole other one in a few years. They said the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection did very well, performed strongly. And then they also mentioned that the Mega Man X Legacy Collection 2, and the X Legacy Collection 1 and 2, so all of the X collections they did, performed well. I was hoping it would have been, performed with robust sales or strongly. They just said performed well, so they didn't go over the top with it or anything. And it looks like they are moving, of course, towards big sales with Devil May Cry next year, and of course Resident Evil Remake 2, which I think is going to be Resident Evil 2 Remake, which I think is going to do very well. I'm looking forward to that. I'm very interested in seeing how that game changes with a change of camera angle and, of course, visual style and ability to tell the story differently, just from the better visuals and the newer technology now as compared to on the PS1. That's probably also why Resident Evil 2 wasn't on the PlayStation Classic as well, because Resident Evil 2 Remake is coming out in a few months, so they don't want to, again, battle themselves over that. But Capcom's doing well. Good to hear. They have at least an idea of what they're going to be doing going forward with those games, and then we'll have to keep an eye out for the next financial report to see what they say about Mega Man 11, as that could give us an indication as to how well it did and if there's room for possibly Mega Man X9, I hope so, but we'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about, specifically that PlayStation 1 Classic. What would you take away? What would you add? What are you disappointed about for it? What are you excited about? I'm curious what you think about that whole system and that lineup, or tell me about Capcom and their financials and how they are looking at Monster Hunter and seeing, I think, a golden goose there, and they're looking to have maybe 2 lines of games there. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.